Every year I try to make teaching this game easier for you. Every year I'm trying to reduce the information flow. And if I'm honest, every year it gets more and more difficult because every year I'm being bombarded with more and more useful information. And trying to sort the wheat from the chaff and understand how much information I should be giving you is probably the most difficult task for any teacher. However, this year, I think I really have hit it, in as much that I want to reduce the golf swing to bare mechanics. You've got to imagine that all of these instruments that we're using to tell you whether you're doing it right or wrong are actually just showing you effects. There's no causality. It's showing you that your head should be still, your hips should turn, your weight should transfer, your wrists will hinge and unhinge at particular points in the swing, but these are effects. And the first golfers didn't have all this equipment and still played good golf. A child looks at a golf swing and sees through the facade, which is head still, hips turned, arms straight. It sees the pure mechanics. Unfortunately, we lose this ability when we're around about 12 years of age. And then all we see is something to analyze, something to check. And what we've been doing is trying to press you into all these positions that we've analyzed, all these positions that we believe to be correct, because good players are getting into them. The fact is, however, the first time that good players went on a TrackMan, they didn't know which numbers were right, which numbers were wrong. And even if you go into high 3D analysis, we are talking about ranges of movement. We're never talking about a position or at one angle that every golf professional does the same. So how in the world are you supposed to learn it if you're getting 50 or 60 different parameters that you've got to be thinking about? It's going to be a bit like that bridge that you never stop painting, because by the time you get to one end, you've got to start at the other. Even worse, you change one parameter and another one gets worse. There's got to be some kind of simple truth behind a golf swing, behind this facade that we see on screen, which is really controlling and moving a golf club. And that's the reason that I'm on the putting green today, because I think the putter shows us everything we should be doing right and everything we've been doing wrong. You've got to understand that this golf swing is counterintuitive. You don't really want to do what you intuitively think you should be. If you look at a ball and a hole, it would lead you to believe you've just got to pull the club away and push it through to the hole, which will get you moving the club backwards and forwards in front of you. The trouble with that is the way that you apply force to the handle or grip of the golf club, I believe to be incorrect. In fact, I think I am being proven right when you see a lot of golfers nowadays scared to hold the golf club at all for a load of fear that they're going to twist it in the wrong direction. The trouble is, in the past, what we've been doing with the golf club is pushing and pulling it backwards and forwards to the target, which has caused our body to push and pull and try to help, and hasn't really made us better at golf whatsoever. I believe we've got to look behind this facade at the true mechanics of the movement and see what is actually happening and how can we actually get a golf club, whether it be a putter or a driver, to move on a neutral path backwards and forwards through the ball, to deliver the club face at right angles to the club, to control the distance that we are away from the ground and the speed that the club head is moving. And I believe there is one mechanical principle which will do all of that for you when you're putting. And this mechanical principle you can use with every club in the bag. So what is it? Well, the simple thing, first of all, is to forget the ball. It's not important. You can forget the hole as well. It's not important either. Even the golf club to start off with isn't very important in order to understand the mechanics of the movement. Because when you grip a golf club, you create a triangle between your shoulders and your arms. And I believe the trick is just to simply move this triangle backwards and forwards during your swing in whatever plane is necessary. The question is, how do you move the triangle? Do you move it by grabbing the end of the triangle and moving it backwards and forwards? That would seem to break the triangle down. Suddenly I've got a square. No, the best way to move a triangle is to apply force down one side of the triangle in the diagonal that the triangle gives you. So I would move force down the left side of the triangle, press with my left arm down, allow my left shoulder to go with it, and pull back with the right side of the triangle, the right shoulder moving up. I will allow my body to help me with this when needed. That means the right hip moving up, the right leg straightening, the left hip coming forward and going back. Now I know you're going to say, yeah, but you shouldn't be moving your hips and your legs when you're swinging a putter. I don't think you're right. I think you should. On the contrary, I know that a lot of the way that the brain actually controls movement is through the feedback that it gets from the feet. The pressure changes that it feels when you move help it to understand whether it's doing the movement correctly and whether the intensity, the force of the movement is correct for the job you have at hand. Which means that even when I'm making a very small movement with my shoulders, arms and hands, I can feel it in my shoes. I can feel the balls of my feet working against the ground. And that is important for the way that my brain controls movement and steers movement. Simply put, what's actually happening is almost like a circle of force applied either clockwise or anti-clockwise around the triangle. When the left side of my body pushes down in the diagonal, the right side pulls up. When the right side pushes down, the left side moves up. That means as I take the club away, my hands pull together, and as I swing through, they pull apart. This would mean then that when I take a golf club in my hand and do the same thing, by pulling my hands together on the grip, it will cause the triangle to swing to the right, and by pulling them apart, to swing to the left, as a right-handed golfer, of course. When I do this, the triangle swings in a simple path, backwards and forwards, dependent on the steepness of the triangle. And because I have a short club in my hand and my hands are pretty much over the club, then were the club to be a pencil, the pencil would draw a pretty straight line on the floor. And one of the main factors when you're striking a golf ball is the path that the club takes through the golf ball. If you can control the path, you're well on your way to controlling where the golf ball goes. One of the problems that a lot of amateur golfers have, even when not putting, but now and again, is the second ball that comes into play. Not the golf ball, but Mother Earth. And if you collide with her, you're not winning. So one of the things that you've got to do is be able to control the distance that the club is away from the ground by making sure that the triangle doesn't stretch or contract during your swing. Unfortunately, intuitively, your arms will tend to do the same thing. They will either both stretch or they will both contract, obviously causing you to hit the ground or to top the ball. But not with these mechanics, because when one arm is pushing towards the ground, the other is pulling away, especially in the downswing as your trail side pushes down in a diagonal forwards, your lead side is pulling in a diagonal away. And by balancing these forces, you can control the depth of your swing and therefore control how much contact your club makes with the ground, which obviously when you're putting shouldn't really be very much. You really want the feeling of almost razoring the grass as you do this. If you can get that feeling, then you've now got two of the major factors in a golf swing. You're controlling the path, and you are also controlling the distance of the club from the ground. Of course, I know the most important thing is the club face. In putting, apparently 95% club face is deciding where the ball goes. So it means that when you hit the golf ball, the club face has to be square. Have any of you really thought about how you're squaring the club face at impact? How the golf professionals are doing this in that millisecond that's important? Well, now you know, because when you pull the club together, your wrists will hinge a little. When you pull it apart, they will straighten. Your wrists will bow down, and they will come into an identical position every time. Roll the club open and then pull it apart. Hinge it up and then pull it apart, and your wrists will return to the same position every time. Imagine that the club face was at right angles when they did that. Making the grip so that when you stretch the grip, the leading edge is pointing vertically to the sky, will mean that if you stretch the grip just before contacting the ball, the club face is at right angles to the target. The same mechanic, which is controlling path, controlling the distance that you are away from the ground, can also control where the club face is pointing at impact. In fact, there's only one other parameter that we have to control, and that's the speed. Now, I don't know about you, but were someone to give me a ball and tell me to roll it to the target, I'm doing that with my hand and with the feeling in my hand, not my shoulder. If somebody says I have to control the speed with which I throw a ball with my shoulder, I've got a problem. I'm not saying that the shoulder isn't involved in the action. I'm just saying it isn't controlling the action, and it's not controlling the speed of the action. Now, I imagine, especially since COVID, you've been washing your hands a lot, and you can wash them quite vividly and actively, and you can wash them very gently. You can control absolutely how fast or how slow you pull your hands together or pull them apart. And as you see, when you do this, it gets your shoulders to move in the same speed. If I take a club in my hand and pull my hands slowly together until I stop pulling them together, the club will swing to the right. When I pull them apart slowly, it will swing to the left. If I change that to a more abrupt movement, I can move the club as quickly or as slowly, as long or as short as I want. It really is as simple as that. We have one mechanical aspect which controls path, distance from the ground, club face, and speed, all at the same time. All I have to do is make sure that when I address the golf ball, the club face is pointing in the direction that the golf ball starts, or should start. And that means when I address the golf ball, I'm going to have my hands higher than usual in order to make the change in the wrist angle as small as possible when I strike the ball. As I pull the club together, there will be a slight hinging of the wrist, but as I pull it apart, that will change back and deliver the club face square, which would mean that when I align the club face correctly behind the ball and get the pendulum movement to be gentle enough, there's only one place the ball's going. And this is going to make short putts very easy for you. The whole mechanics in the golf swing is that you're going to have the feeling of your body being divided vertically. When left goes down, right goes up. When right goes down, left goes up. You are never moving to the target. You are always moving force down the diagonal. And the diagonal will be pointing at different places during the swing. You're always moving force down and away from the diagonal. And this will be the same if you have a driver in your hand or a putter in your hand. The only difference is the driver's going to paint a flatter and wider curve than the putter. Hope you like it. Be back soon with the next one.